Hello there! Welcome to Skeleton Key Productions. I'm Karen Graves Cocon. Let's get into the video. Today's video, we're going to basically be doing part 2 to the video on What If Ireland United. So that by far has been my most popular video to date. The level of engagement has been really extraordinary. It's at the moment it's like over 1,700 comments because a lot of the comments were very similar. So we're going to basically kind of look at answering the overarching kind of points which were made in the comments. And if I haven't responded to you, there was kind of a deluge at some point of all the different kind of comments coming in at the same point. So I know I'm like many weeks / months behind responding to every person. I'll try and get onto it, but just if I haven't responded to you, please don't take offense to that. I'm just very snowed under. And yeah, so this video is going to kind of be addressing that. We're also as well going to be talking about what my own views on the situation are, because for this channel up until this point, what I've basically kind of done is been like, here's the information, make your own mind up about this. And I've kind of gone off the model of a tldr news. So like this really good YouTube channel which kind of just gives impartial information and stuff, yeah. So for the most part with my channel, I've kind of been like, here's the different information, you make your own mind up about it, and let me know in the comment section. But with regard to this, I've kind of, as time goes on, I'm going to be kind of talking about what my own views on things are. So this kind of video, you're going to see a lot more of this, especially when we move on to like the film review stuff. So that's probably going to be October or November at this rate. So with that, it's kind of, I'm going to be doing stuff to talk about film, but then maybe once a week I'll either do like a Q&A or maybe for members only with regard to like Patreon and stuff. I might just have like a live stream or something like that. So you're going to see more of me kind of give my own opinions and stuff, and some of them you're going to like, some of them you won't like, but that's just that. So talking about this, on like the first kind of overarching comment, which was kind of like said to people, because I don't want to put people out on blast and stuff, whether they said nice things or not, right? Because a lot of the comments were very similar. So a lot of people gave a really good compliment, and the best compliment I could have for a video as contentious as that was that it was well balanced, right? Really loved that, because that's what I tried as much as possible to do. From like, from growing up, I've always known about this conflict. I have friends in Northern Ireland, I've been there twice, and yeah, so I know people from both sides of the communities, and I instinctively know about a lot of like the history and stuff. So as much as possible, I tried to do a video which wouldn't offend either community. This video might be a bit different, but hopefully it kind of stays on that same similar path. But yeah, so that was the overarching kind of thing, which I was very complimented by, and that was like what I really tried to go for. So it was really nice to know that people thought it was well balanced. The second thing that people kind of said was that I was well spoken. Now, I have to me and my friends basically laughed when we heard this, because what you have to understand is this, how I talk on YouTube is not how I talk with my friends, right? So obviously when I'm presenting to people, I have to speak relatively well spoken. I'm not like talking like the Queen's English, but I have to speak in a way which people from England, from different parts of England, and from like the whole rest of the world can understand my accent. And so this is when I talk about serious stuff. This is kind of the voice which I'm going to put on and stuff. Because I have different accents depending on who I'm kind of talking to. So if I'm talking with like Tim down the pub and stuff, I'm like, yeah, you're right, mate. How you doing? Yeah, like, yeah, how's your father and stuff? Yeah, right. Like, you know what I mean? So that's how I talk with some people. When I talk with my mates, I'm like, yo, bruv, hey, so basically, yo, you had these people here, these Catholics and that, and anyway, they're these Protestants and they're beefing these people, bruv, it's some madness, So if I talk like that, you guys will be like, huh? Like, subtitles needed, So this is kind of the reason why I talk in a certain way. So I even had one person, was like, "Oh, you're so well spoken. I can tell that like you're not from London, and like you're like very like upper class or whatever it was." I can't remember, but I just found it hilarious, because I was like, clearly you don't know me. Clearly you've never met me around my friends and stuff. I don't talk like this on a regular. What are you talking about? So, and then also as well, talking about accents and stuff, right? I'm not Irish, so when I read something which says Dale, I say it as Dale, and I knew I was mispronouncing it, more likely than not, because I can't speak Irish. So this is what I've kind of said in like videos I've come on after this, If one person needs to correct me on how I mispronounce something, just one person do that. I had such a deluge of people being like, it's Doyle, it's Doyle, it's Doyle, it's Doyle, and different variations on how to pronounce. There's like people were like, oh, it's Doyle like Boyle, it's Doyle like the River Foyle. Like it's just multiple different. I was like, I get it, okay, I understand now. I will never make that mistake again. It's Doyle, it's Doyle, it's Doyle. Okay, this is talk about the Irish Parliament for those who don't know. Yeah, the Irish Doyle. Yes, I understand now. Didn't need multiple people correcting me on that. I feel a little bit embarrassed. And yeah, thank you. Message got now. Thank you. Thumbs up. Just leave me alone. And then also as well, another thing which people kind of like kept kind of going on about was about the past, right? Now, okay, I gave like some historical context within this, as I do with all my videos, but that's kind of just a very brief overview for people. If you were an alien and knew nothing about it at all, I'm kind of just explaining to you the overarching things so that you can understand what's going on. People in the comment section were like, oh, well, no, but like, you forgot to mention about this little thing here, and oh, no, and you know, that wasn't the point of the video. Calm down. Calm down. The video was not a blow by blow of 400 years of ethnic conflict, okay? That was not what the video was about. Please just chill out on that. I'm well aware of much of the history of what you're talking about, but it was superfluous for the video. So the reason why I didn't mention a lot of things, which I could have easily mentioned, is because it wasn't necessary. It didn't add more to the understanding of the complexities of what a united Ireland would look like. So the whole point of the video was looking at the future. It wasn't meant to be like looking at the past. And actually, this is something which, you know, the first time I went to Northern Ireland and stuff, yeah. So I've got a friend who lives in County Antrim, right? And she said, oh, so, you know, what's your take on Northern Ireland? This after a day of you know, I come from Dublin, I've driven up across the border, gone to Belfast, got a coach and then went all the way to Derry/Londonderry. I'll get onto that in a second, because that's another thing, which is just meh. Went there and then came back to her and stuff. So I'd seen all the kind of things I needed to see and stuff. And she was like, oh, so what do you think about Northern Ireland? And I was like, well, in the words of Doug Stanhope, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of past, but not much future here. And that's because people are so focused on like this atrocity happened and, you know, this person down the road from me got killed by these. But it's just, okay, I understand all that. I'm not dismissing it, but you have to understand the video was talking about the complexities of where do we go from here if, you know, if there ends up being a vote for Irish unity. You can't just always focus on the past. The past, I'm a historian, yeah, the past is important, but you can't just dwell in the past. You have to look at the past and be like, okay, I understand the situation, where do we go from here? So that's kind of what, you know, that's kind of the overarching point with that. And also as well, when talking about like the you know, the history of it and stuff, I had a lot of people, so most of the comments tended to be people from the Irish nationalist community, especially for a long time. I didn't have any unionists, yeah, so much so that I even asked people in the comment section, if you know any like unionists, please can you like send this video to them, yeah, just because I want to get their take on it. And you know, like both in the comment section and also like on my Instagram as well, so definitely check that out as well, and you can speak to me directly on there. Yeah, so people kind of were explaining the situation a bit more, and it has helped to like change my perspective on a little bit, which we'll get onto a bit later. But yeah, so people have said that there was no discrimination against Protestants in the south of Ireland. Now, that's not entirely true. At the same time, it's not entirely false. So what I mean by this is, in any war or any kind of thing of like independence and stuff, there are going to be some people who are happy with it and some people are not happy with it. So if you take, for instance, the Declaration of Independence for America and you know, the American War for Independence and etc., there were lots of people who after that left and like fled to Canada and stuff because they were being discriminated against by the revolutionaries in America, right? And it wasn't like from the state, it wasn't a top-down kind of thing, but people locally knew how people voted and what their sympathies were. So, you know, people, you know, they harassed them and stuff, they discriminate against them. So in the same way, you know, in the period where you had the Irish Free State, yeah, so just a few years after they got independence, but before like the establishment of the Irish Republic in 1937, you did have a lot of instances where Protestants in the south were discriminated against, not in some major way, but they were. And the most glaring example of this is the Dunbar-Harrison case of 1930. So what ended up happening is, I believe in County Mayo, you had a librarian, and she was Protestant, and you know, she wanted to obviously get a job as a librarian. And the local people that I can't remember the exact ins and outs of it and stuff, I had looked into it, but like basically the local people, obviously most of them were Catholic and stuff, yeah, and they were like, right, can we trust a Protestant to hand out books to Catholics, right? This was the whole debate. And I can't remember whether it was the national government or whether it was someone else who like intervened and basically said, no, of course you can have a job. I believe it was the national government, yeah. But, you know, so you could say, oh, this was one isolated case in one little place where they didn't allow, you know, they made it difficult for this Protestant librarian woman. However, Eamon de Valera, he also intervened in this, yeah. So he would later become like the Irish president and stuff, yeah. And you know, he was very instrumental in the establishment of Ireland's independence and stuff. So he was a very major politician, and he intervened and basically said, no, that this librarian woman shouldn't have this job. And the fact also that this librarian, you know, like she didn't leave like for the north straight away, but like, you know, years later, her and her husband moved up to Northern Ireland, and that's where they spent the rest of their life and stuff. You know, it's not to say that all the people in Northern Ireland who are Protestants would be discriminated against, but it's just something to bear in mind that, you know, perception is key, okay? Perception is more important than reality, right? As I always say, you know, we're nothing more than the amalgamation of everything that we think has happened, everything that we think will happen, right? So, you know, the Protestants, they remember, for instance, you know, the siege of Londonderry, yeah, in 1688, and they look back at that and go, okay, cool, we were literally starved to death, yeah, or like, well, you know, there was an attempt to starve the city of Londonderry to death by Catholic forces, and it was only when, you know, William of Orange, yeah, sent his ships in and like liberated the city. That's the only reason why like that blockade was, and that, you know, that siege was lifted. So people remember things like that. People remember like the troubles. People remember like all the kind of things that, you know, that happened during that time. So also as well, someone was like, oh, you know, they said basically, oh, there'd be no ethnic cleansing because the Republic of Ireland would never allow it, right? And it's like, you know, in the long annals of human history, there's no telling what human beings will do, yeah? And this is the whole point. This is hopefully what I've tried to like present with my channel, is that there's, you know, human beings are capable of anything. You can't rule out anything, right? And so to kind of say that, oh, it just won't happen. How do you know it won't happen? Yes, obviously the people in Dublin, yes, obviously the people like, you know, running like the Republic of Ireland are not going to be in favour of this, yeah? And obviously the vast majority of nationalists in the north would not be in favour of it. However, all it takes is a handful of extremists like, you know, Republican terrorists to basically, you know, terrorise people in the north, and then that essentially could be the ethnic cleansing, because they could do it in such a way that people end up having to flee and stuff, right? If the British army couldn't stop these people, what makes you think that the Irish army is going to be able to stop these people if something like that were to happen? Not saying it will, but if something like that was to happen, what's to say that that couldn't end up happening? And this is another thing that people in the comment section said, yeah, like, you know, one person in particular kind of said, oh, you will never understand Northern Irish politics. And it's true, I will never understand it yet, because as someone who comes from a kind of, you know, a liberal, like, democratic society, you know, I'm used to things being resolved in a peaceful and democratic way. I'm not used to people like having to like do politics while also having to look over their shoulder at who's like trying to kill them and stuff, right? People in Northern Ireland, for too long, people have chosen the bullet over the ballot, right? And this kind of the fear of terrorism, yeah, like from one side or from the other side, that is something which has to stop. You know, like we cannot solve things through violence, yeah, like there has to be civility, there has to be peace, there has to be negotiation, has to be all these kind of things. And you can see the same thing in Israel and Palestine, so definitely check out the video I've done on that, yeah, right? It's the thing where people are not willing to negotiate, people are not willing to give an inch, yeah. So even if someone like offers up, you know, 100% of Gaza and 98% of West Bank and stuff, is a thing where people go, no, we want everything, or no. And then on the flip side, obviously, with the same thing with the Israelis stuff, it's like you can't govern in this way, right? People have to be, you know, allowed to self-determine, and like this is kind of what I'm going to get into for the rest of the video, yeah, what my actual like take on like the matter is. As Thomas Sowell said, there's no solutions, yeah, like there's only trade-offs. So what I'm going to present in this video is a potential compromise, a potential set of trade-offs, yeah, which hopefully will go some way in resolving some elements of this. Obviously, there's not going to be, you know, obviously not 100% of people are going to be happy. As in all cases, yeah, you're not going to be able to make 100% of the people happy all the time, right? But there has to be some sort of give and take, yeah, because the Good Friday Agreement, this is something which I kind of after speaking to some loyalist people online, I regret now saying the thing about like when it all happened, because based on the terms of the Good Friday Agreement, it's a question of like demographic trends. Like at some point there will be a majority of people in Northern Ireland who are going to be Catholic, and yes, the two terms are not completely synonymous, but there's a lot of overlap between Catholic Irish nationalist and Protestant Unionist, right? There's a lot of overlap. So anyway, the point is this, that at some point there will likely be a majority in Northern Ireland who are going to be in favour of having a united Ireland. And under the Good Friday Agreement terms, that is something which has to be granted, and there has to be a border poll. And then if that was to happen, then Northern Ireland would be handed over to the Republic. But as I always say, laws were made to be amended, right? At the moment, I'm looking at the US Constitution and the Articles of Confederation which came before it. And, in some cases, people either have to make amendments to things, or they have to completely throw out like the old agreement and stuff, if it's just not working. And after speaking to people from like the unionist/loyalist community, they're not going anywhere, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit later on as well. Like, they're not going anywhere. And the fact that talking about Derry/Londonderry, the fact that even after I've kind of said Derry/Londonderry, people in the comment section going, no, it's Londonderry, no, it's Derry, kind of shows to me that like there's a fundamental problem here, that like the Good Friday Agreement, it froze the conflict, right? So in the choice between an active conflict and a frozen conflict, people should always choose the frozen conflict, right? However, the fundamental like building blocks of peace, there's no foundation for peace there, right? The underlying tensions are still there, the problems are still unresolved, right? And so yes, it's better than people like killing each other and stuff, right? But it's not actually peace. The Good Friday Agreement, in my opinion, either has to be amended or it has to be scrapped and replaced with something else, because just simply handing over all that territory and all those people to the Republic of Ireland, it's two sides of the same coin, in my opinion, right? The Irish nationalists who live in Northern Ireland are not happy with being under the British flag. And the people of Northern Ireland who are unionists also do not want to live under an Irish flag. So you're not solving the problem. All you would be doing in this case is flipping it on its head. So this is kind of what we're going to talk about in this video, and offer up like some potential like trade-offs, and some potential things which might help to alleviate some of those tensions. Right, so before kind of talking about what I think the trade-offs are, I have to first of all talk from first principles, right? So for me, the central building block of any society is the individual. Then it goes up to the family, then it goes up to the local community, and then it goes up to the nation, right? And as much as possible, I believe that borders ought to reflect people and not the other way around. Yes, obviously, it's not going to be complete perfect. If you've got one person, if you've got like a couple, for instance, and one of them is as a British unionist and the other person is an Irish nationalist, obviously you can't draw the border like down like their bed or something, right? That's not going to work. So obviously there will be some people who will find themselves on the wrong side of the respective border. However, by and large, it should be a situation where, as much as possible, a community should reflect the national identity under which it wants to be, because it's the same kind of thing with like the American the American Revolution, no taxation without representation. Like the people in like Northern Ireland who feel Irish, they are being forced to pay taxes towards a government which doesn't represent them and which they like don't feel like they belong to. And on the flip side, if you like had a united Ireland, it would be the exact same thing, but with like the British Unionists, where they're having to pay taxes towards the Dáil, see, I remembers now, between the Dáil, but they don't feel represented by that, right? And actually we can see a demonstration of this, with three maps that we have here. So there's three different elections. So the first one is in 1885, the second is in 1918, and the third is in 2019. Now, what you can see, although the parties in each case are changing, you can see that like the situation's not really changed. The people in the north who are pro-unionist, they vote differently from the rest of Northern Ireland and certainly the rest of Ireland. So some people in the comments have been like, oh, well, if there was United Ireland, eventually the unionists would they'd start voting for like Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil or whatever, and you're like, no, there's no evidence that's going to happen, right? If in like 1885, when the Irish people could like also be part of like the British like Parliament in Westminster, you didn't see this kind of overlap. People didn't just kind of, people voted along the kind of sectarian lines even then. So I don't see how, in 50 years time, the people who are now voting for the DUP are now suddenly going to start voting for whatever like Irish like national like party they want to, right? It's just not going to happen. The people in Republic of Ireland are constantly going to have these people in the north who are going to, at bare minimum, let's just assume there's no violence and that there's no civil disobedience and civil disruption yet, right? Bare minimum, these people are always going to be a thorn in your side who are constantly going to just be agitating against your government, right? And it's going to be a headache for the people of the Republic of Ireland, and it's also obviously going to be a headache for those unionists in Northern Ireland who are they're in the wrong country, right? This is kind of something to kind of bear in mind, yeah, that like however you kind of cut this, in my opinion, I don't think that there ought to be a united Ireland, right? And I know this will annoy a lot of people in the comment section, but given the facts on the ground, it will never, I don't think that, even if it was done in a peaceful way, it will always be a problem. And therefore, I don't think it ought to be done. Yes, I understand it's a dream for many people, it's been an ambition for many, many people, but it's something which long term is not ever going to work out, right? And it also disrespects the people who live in these communities in the north, right? And actually, I'm gonna like read now. Okay, this was a poem written by Rudyard Kipling, so obviously he's an Englishman, yeah, but it resonates with a lot of people in the Loyalist community. I'll put a link in the description for someone who actually kind of reads it better and stuff. Yeah, I'm not like I'm not great at reciting poetry, but I'm going to like read it for you now, just so you kind of get an idea of the feelings that are of the people there. The dark 11th hour draws on and sees us sold to every evil power we fought against of old. Rebellion, rapine, hate, oppression, wrong and greed are loose to rule our fate by England's act and deed. The faith in which we stand, the laws we made and guard, our honour, lives and land are given for reward. To murder done by night, to treason taught by day, to folly, sloth and spite, and we are thrust away. The blood our fathers spilt, our love, our toils, our pains, are counted us for guilt, and only bind our chains. Before an empire's eyes, the traitor claims his price. What need of further lies? We are the sacrifice. We ask no more than leave, to reap where we have sown, through good and ill to cleave, to our own flag unthrown. Now England's shot and steel beneath that flag must show, how loyal hearts should kneel to England's oldest foes. We know the war prepared on every peaceful home. We know the hell's declared for such as serve not Rome. The terror, threats and dread in market, hearth and field. We know when all is said, we perish if we yield. Believe we dare not boast, believe we do not fear. We stand to pay the cost in all that men hold dear. What answer from the north? One law, one land, one throne. If England drives us forth, we shall not fall alone. Now, in that poem, you can see that basically, the feelings of people in the north are very, very like set against there being a united Ireland, right? And this is something which we really have to kind of bear in mind, yeah, that under no circumstances are they going to, submit to there being Dublin Rule in the same way that Irish nationalists are not going to submit to London Rule. So this is a pipe dream, much in the same way as when every now and again you'll have some like just idiots like talking about, oh, we can have a united Ireland, yeah, but like have it under the British Empire again. And yeah, that's never ever going to happen, and it's not even a funny joke. It's just a stupid joke. This is something we have to understand as well. In 1922, the British Empire at that time was the largest it would ever be and had ever been and stuff, right? And the people who divided Ireland were of this old imperialist mindset, right? These are people who believed in the empire and they believed that, like we should have as much territory as possible. And so that's why, for instance, they looked at Northern Ireland, they looked at the 9 counties of Ulster and was like, right, we can have 6 counties, yeah, and this should preserve like the Protestant majority there. But if we have a 7th, then it's gonna like throw the balance off, right? So that's why they had the 6 counties, even though, 2 of them had Catholic majorities even then, right? So even at the time at which the border was drawn, and bear in mind, of course, it was just meant to be a temporary border, it was not supposed to be a permanent thing, there was problems with it even then. And so when it suggested 3 years later in the Border Commission of 1925 that there should be some changes to the border to kind of like reflect like the situation on the ground, it was thrown out on two different grounds. One, the British government wanted to keep as much land as possible, so they didn't really want to give away too much. And then on the flip side, the Irish Free State at that point, Ireland's constitution up until the Good Friday Agreement, I believe, or maybe a little bit earlier, I can't fully remember, but its constitution said that Northern Ireland was part of the Republic of Ireland, right? And so they didn't recognise the border. So why would they then sit about and like discuss how a border should look when they don't recognise that border in the first place? So for two reasons, like the Border Commission end up being ineffectual. However, the suggestions which they had would have given a sizable percentage of the Catholic population over to the Republic. Not like a large percentage. From memory, it was only about, I think, 6%. So not much, is kind of a drop in the ocean, but still it would have gone some way to kind of fixing this. So for instance, in the city of Derry, because I'm talking now about just the Catholic side of it, Derry, or Free Derry, that would actually under this commission have been part of of the Republic of Ireland. So if they'd agreed to this, for instance, all the things that we see with the Troubles, with the Bloody Sunday, etc., etc., that probably wouldn't have happened if that community had become part of the Republic of Ireland. And so this is kind of something that we have to kind of think about, How could we repartition Ireland? And this is where it becomes very, very difficult. And I know obviously a lot of people in the comment section, they're not going to be happy with the fact I'm suggesting a repartition. They'll be like, oh, look at this Brit back at it again. But as I've discussed in like my video on English national identity, I'm an Englishman, right? I'm an English patriot. I don't actually like personally believe that the United Kingdom should exist as it currently does. I want England to be independent from it. So I don't have a stake in this, and it's kind of something which I said in like in the comment section in like the Scottish independence videos. When I say like I don't care, it's not like I don't care at all. I want people to be happy there, but I don't have a stake in like the interest in this, right? So I just want there to be peace, but I'm not coming from it from a perspective of like, oh, this somehow benefits me and my country. It doesn't affect me at all, right? Kind of, that's not why I'm suggesting it. I want there to be peace. That's why I'm suggesting what I'm suggesting. So what I would suggest is this, right? First of all, there needs to be a border poll, right? Not like how you had in 1973 where most of the Catholics end up boycotting it. That's not helpful, okay? We can't have different communities boycotting this thing. Like that's you don't do that, right? Like it'd be like for the Brexit thing if like one whole side like just didn't decide to show up and stuff. No, like you need to have people turning up to this. It's a very important thing. We can't have boycotts. We can't have political grandstanding. Just do it, okay? So with this, you have a border poll, and then based on the different communities and stuff, I think it should be done on like a district level, because doing it on a constituency level, you probably could kind of do it. Doing it on a county level, no, it's just far too as we can see with the map here, it's just no, just it's no, just no. So doing it on district level is probably the easiest way to kind of somehow kind of like fix it and stuff, and then from there you have something that someone suggested in the comment section, right? You have a citizens assembly. So the border in no way should be drawn by people in London, as happened before. It shouldn't be drawn by people in Dublin. It shouldn't even be drawn by people in Stormont, in Belfast. No, this needs to be decided on a community by community basis, because say for instance you have a community A, and the border would end up being drawn in such a way where like they want like unification, for instance, but the border just wouldn't make sense and stuff, right? So then they'd come together and be like, actually, you know what, we want this other arrangement, or then vice versa, right? So if there's a Protestant community somewhere far out in like the rest of what is now Republic of Ireland, it might make more sense for them to be like, you know what, even though we voted for this, it might make more sense for us to like join part of like the Republic of Ireland, and then vice versa. If there's a nationalist community in the middle of a unionist setting and stuff, maybe they might be like, actually, it might make more sense for our community to like remain British. And also as well, there's also the complexity of people in Northern Ireland some of them identify as being British, some of them identify as being Irish. There's also a contingency that identify as being Northern Irish. And that's also complicated as well. I've not looked into like the exact details of that in terms of people who identify as Northern Irish, whether they tend to be more Catholic or whether they tend to be more Protestant. I'd assume Protestant, but I can't necessarily guarantee that. It's also a thing where, in this regard, the two terms are not necessarily synonymous between Catholic and Protestant, because there are obviously a lot of Catholics who'd rather remain like British, and there's also some like kind of like Protestants who would like, we wouldn't mind there being a United Ireland and stuff, right? So we had to kind of bear this in mind, that it's not a clear cut kind of thing. So for this intents and purposes, I'm going to, as much as possible, try and say unionist and nationalist, yeah, just to kind of keep it somewhat more simple and more accurate, right? So that's, I think, how it should be done. Now, as much as possible, you kind of have like these two conflicting things when it comes to Northern Ireland, yeah? So on the one hand, you want the border to reflect the communities. On the other hand, you also want it to not look like a complete like mess on like a map and stuff, right? You know, Northern Ireland itself, as much as possible, should kind of look a bit contiguous, and to varying degrees, you have to kind of like factor this in, yeah, of like how the border should look. You know, so for instance, if the goal is for Northern Ireland to be, I don't know, 70% Protestant, then you have to draw the border in a certain way. If, however, you want it to be 90% Protestant, then you have to factor in the fact of it's going to look far more squiggly and just more of a mess and stuff, right? So it's kind of a balance here of like how exactly you do this in a way where it's going to kind of make sense, right? I'm not pretending that any of this is going to be easy, but as much as possible, there should be a gradual, peaceful, democratic way of resolving this, probably over a period of like 3 to 5 years. From the experience of like living through Brexit, when you have a constitutional crisis that hits the 3 year mark, people start getting really fed up with it and go, okay, this needs to get sorted now, right? So probably not 5 years, but probably, and it can't just be overnight. It can't just be like India and Pakistan, where it's just like, right, here's the border, like you know, you can't do that. There needs to be time for people to negotiate, people to move if they want to move, for them to adjust to the fact of, okay, I'm going to be living under this foreign government now, and blah 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 blah, and sorting out infrastructure and all these kind of things. It's going to be a long process. But I think that at the end of that process, the situation on the ground will be far better, and the sinews of peace will be far better secured than they are at the moment, right? And far more than they would be under a united Ireland, right? You can't have a cookie cutter like a thing of like an all nothing kind of solution to this, yeah? It needs to be some nuance to it. There needs to be negotiation. There needs to be compromise. It's all very complicated, and to try and have a kind of simple kind of like, we can just do this. No, it's complicated, but that's kind of what I think needs to happen more. And then finally as well, you have the major complication of what do you do with Belfast, right? So Belfast, as you can see on the map here, most of the areas are Protestant. However, you have a lot of people who are Catholic. And then in terms of national identity, you can see this is what the kind of map looks like, right? When it comes to like Derry/Londonderry, it's 75% of almost 100,000 people, yeah, and like they are Catholic, right? So it's relatively easy to kind of draw a border along like the River Foyle or just a little bit more, and it's relatively easy to kind of sort out. However, when it comes to Belfast, a lot of West Belfast is Catholic. However, trying to draw a border there, it's complicated, because now you're going to split off the Protestants who live in West Belfast and the rest of them who live in East Belfast. Is like it's there has to be some sort of thing there, because the people who live in Falls Road, I can't imagine that they're going to be happy living under Britain still and stuff, right? So then do they become a tiny enclave, which is like far removed from where the rest of the border is, or do they kind of just have to put up with it and just accept it? In terms of Belfast, the population at the moment is roughly about 300,000, a little bit more than that, and a majority of people there are Catholic, just about. However, you know, in terms of what percentage of them identify as being British, it's 43% identify as being British, it's 35% who identify as being Irish, and it's 27% who identify as being Northern Irish, right? So it's complicated, right? What's kind of to do with Belfast, yeah? That's something which people are going to have to kind of negotiate, and again, it's going to have to be done in this way. And the people kind of say, oh, well, what about hard border? Not being funny, if you travel about Belfast, there are hard borders already. I think I might have mentioned this last time, the fact that like going from, because I went out on foot and did like a tour of Belfast, right? Stupidly. And I went through Shank Hill, And then it happened to be kind of like the sun was setting and I wanted to go to Falls Road. I had to go all the way back into the centre of the city and then go into the Falls Road because, you know, you can't just walk from one bit to the next because there's a literal gate separating the two communities, yeah? So there's already a hard wall. You already have a hard border through communities anyway. Far more so than you had along like the border between like Britain and the Republic of Ireland, yeah? So there's more walls now than there were before. So talking about a hard border and the feasibility of it, the reality on the ground is unfortunately this kind of situation anyway. So, you know, I don't fully buy the whole thing of a fear about a hard border. It might happen, it might not happen, but the reality on the ground is that there are already hard borders in Northern Ireland anyway. So it might just be a thing where now we're redrawing the borders that can better reflect the situation on the ground anyway. Like, so it's not... It's complicated, yeah. Like, let me know in the comment section what you think, whether you think it's a great idea, or you think it's a terrible idea, or you think I'm stupid, I don't know what I'm talking about, or whether you think, oh, actually, you big brain, hey. But long story short, that, you know, that's my take on it and stuff, yeah. So definitely, you know, if you like this video, definitely hit the like button and let me know in the comment section what you think about it. Also as well, you know, subscribe if you haven't already, and also Patreon, you know, donate to Patreon as well if you want this kind of channel to kind of continue. This is my full-time job at the moment, and it's a thing where I want to make a big success of this channel. And as I said, in a few months' time, we're going to go into film reviews and stuff. But at the moment, I'm just kind of covering all of the kind of alternative history and like the history and like the politics and stuff. So definitely check out like the rest of our videos on these kind of topics because they cover a wide range of different political things and stuff, right? Also, like I said, stay tuned for future like Q&As, yeah, where I kind of like will be discussing different topics in more depth. But yeah, with that being said, have a great day and bye.